education is not an event. You don't finish in education. You can choose to stop it, or you can choose to keep learning forever. How? Simple. Questions and answers.
Tonight, we have the honor of inviting and speaking to Arvind Srinivas, the CEO and co-founder of Perplexity AI, a major AI disruptor in the world of search, challenging the likes of Google and OpenAI. Born in Chennai, India, Arvind holds dual degrees in electrical engineering from IIT Madras and a PhD in computer science from UC Berkeley. With a research background at leading institutions including OpenAI, Google Brain, DeepMind, Perplexity is now processing nearly 780 million user queries per month and is currently valued at $9 billion with support from figures such as Jeff Bezos and companies such as NVIDIA. Arvind is recognized not only for his technical expertise, but for his vision to transform how the world accesses information. Please join me in warmly welcoming the one and only Arvind Srinivas. Just go behind the actor.
Okay, first of all, hello everybody. Thank you for having me here. I don't want to speak for too long because I actually want to get to the Q&A. But first, let me tell you why. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Perplexity is all about questions and answers. But Q&A is actually more important for you specifically as students from a university like Oxford. You are students at the beginning of a life of questioning. And you may be the leaders of the world in the coming age of AI. When you started at Oxford, it was reasonable to expect certain advantages. The network, the prestige, the opportunities. AI is about to change that calculation. Let me tell you why I know this. I grew up in Chennai, India. When I wanted to start a company in the US, I didn't have a lot of people that I could call on for help or advice. I didn't have a network of family or fellow alumni. In other words, I didn't have the advantages that you all have coming out of Oxford. So when I became a founder and CEO, I was perplexed by the simplest of questions: health insurance for my employees. I didn't have anyone to call and tell me the answers to these questions. And there are two reasons for why I could not get these answers. First is they don't teach you all this in electrical engineering or computer science. The second is I had no mentors or network to tell me. So my co-founders and I decided to invent an AI to do that. And that became Perplexity's core product. With answers widely available, the network that your college gives you may not be as useful anymore. And there's something else. As we stand here in these beautiful buildings, there is an element of tradition that guides how we think. From what we wear, to how we treat each other, and to our understanding of how things are generally done. That will also change. We are entering a future where many of our decisions will be made by AI. And these could be small decisions like booking flights or restaurant reservations, to really large ones like choosing a career path or crafting a business strategy. And AI will not be concerned with tradition. So those of us who celebrate tradition or expected to influence decision making may actually be at a disadvantage. So I would urge all of you to be very careful about the people who tell you to resist the future. History has many examples where conventional wisdom has turned out to be wrong. Let me give you an example. My PhD research at Berkeley was very conventional for a PhD, but it was wrong. I met Ilya Sutskever, who was working on what would become ChatGPT. And I shared my ideas with him for my research. And he said, "This is bad. It's all wrong." He wasn't disrespectful about it, but he was quite blunt. I could have chosen to ignore him, but instead I chose to be curious. Contrary to what we believed on the academic side, Ilya said nothing new was needed for AI. Just execute two simple, well-known ideas sequentially, give it a ton of compute, and train on the entire internet. That became ChatGPT. At that time, nobody understood it, but he foresaw the future, and he was correct. And I could tell he was right. Now, up until this point, I've told you ways that academic inquiry may not set you up for success in the AI future. The point in this story with Ilya is also where I could have chosen to drop out and start a company. I did not, and I don't think you should either. So now let me tell you ways in which your study makes you uniquely suited for success in the AI future. The first is that education is not an event. You don't finish in education. You can choose to stop it, or you can choose to keep learning forever. How? Simple. Questions and answers. At Perplexity, we say that we serve curious people. What does that mean? To be curious is to always have more questions. So like me, you can finish an important education and still have questions about what is it like to run a company, or have questions about another industry, like health insurance. So what your education has given you is the right frame of mind to keep asking more questions. Here is the second superpower you will have. In academia, we all have this thing called peer review, because we all know that knowledge is built on the knowledge before it. Every answer just is the foundation for the next question. That is why you have professors, educators. They're not just here to teach you everything that we already know in the world. A book can do that already. They are here to teach you everything we know and help you ask more questions so that you can know more and help the next generation to do the same. At the heart of this chain is an important consideration: accuracy. To build knowledge on the knowledge before it, you have to know that it is right, or else everything after it could end up being wrong. A lot of people ask me about trusting AI, but what they mean is in the privacy sense, the way you talk about whether you can trust social media companies with your data. But now, we have a technology that can actually give you answers to all your questions and make decisions on your behalf. So how can you trust that any of its outputs are accurate? This is exactly what we want to work on. We are working on at Perplexity. But we can't do this alone. We can't be the only people in the world working on accuracy in the outputs. But only accurate outputs will help you get the next set of new questions. You all need to be a part of this. And you're all very uniquely suited for this. The reason is pretty simple. It is easy to exit an incredible institution like Oxford and think you have all the answers to all of the world's questions. But the way you change the world is the only way anyone has ever changed the world. And that is to have all of the questions. Let's start now. Michael is here to ask me questions, and I'm ready. Thank you.
You like still or sparkling? Thank you very much, Arvind, for that very inspiring speech. You've set me up here with quite a task to ask questions and hopefully get impressive answers.
Thank you.
Just following up from your talk, you started off talking about your upbringing and how you had no advantages, no one to call on, and a lot of that came from your own perseverance and resilience that's got you here. What I want to ask is, what do you think was unique about you growing up in the environment you grew up in, and how do you think it contributed to the kind of character that it takes to become the successful man that you are today?
I would say fundamentally it keeps boiling down to curiosity. Of course, perseverance, hard work, like trying to go against the odds, not taking no for an answer. I would attribute all these qualities, but one thing that like has stayed with me is this relentless pursuit of knowledge. My parents always bought me whatever books I wanted. Whatever savings they had, even if it was pretty minimal, they spent it all on my education. And they valued education more than wealth status in the society. To them, it means even more that I actually got a PhD and like did really original research and got them accepted in conferences. My mom and dad are way more proud of like those things than like how much I earn or something like that. So I would say that that's stuck with me, and like that's kind of like core to who I am, and that's also core to what product Perplexity is.
That's amazing. You touched on education, being an important point here. A lot of critics of AI believe that the use of these equipments is actually making people much more lazy, much more dumb. You talked about that in your opening speech. Could you expand your pushback onto that narrative and that philosophy? Do you think that's true, and how do you think it's false?
So it all depends on how you view it. In a world where AI can answer all your questions, like that's what our product is trying to do, should we just be lazy and not do anything about it anymore? Or should we actually feel like, oh wow, this is insane. It feels like I got a calculator or a computer moment again. And so I'm going to, whatever, with the childlike curiosity we all have, where we ask our parents all sort of random questions, where the simplest questions are stuff that puzzle our parents, like why is the sky blue, or like why does this work this way, why does this not fit here? Now like you can go back to that sort of childlike curiosity mode, and you can ask all these questions to a tool that will give you back answers instantly. You can run your own experiments on the world. You can have your own hypothesis about the world. You can uncover truth without having to pay for access to the world's topmost experts on the topic. The tool works the same way, whether you're a professor from Harvard or Stanford, or whether you're like in a nation that's still struggling. So that's phenomenal, and I hope like that has a very positive impact.
Amazing. You cited in the past sort of Elon Musk's grits and 5-word rejection letter from Harvard as formative moments. I want to talk about you, having gone from DeepMind, OpenAI to launching Perplexity. What was the most pivotal moment for you in your journey?
I would say that formative experiences are when you kind of have to hear some uncomfortable truths. So the one incident I pointed out with OpenAI's co-founder, Ilya Sutskever, where I actually thought I was pretty good and I had very good ideas, and he came and told me like this is not the right thing to work on. You should be very comfortable like hearing those kind of things and like introspecting for yourself. And that instilled a sense of truth-seeking attribute to me, which I try to like encourage in everybody who work at Perplexity. Is like, yes, like maybe sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but try to embrace it, and the product should also reflect those values of helping people seek truth. So I would say that was like a pretty important moment.
Amazing. The truth being uncomfortable, of course, the journey of being a founder in such a vicious space is quite a task. Many people go in and fail. I'm sure you probably had moments that you thought that you couldn't carry on. Could you tell us whether you ever seriously considered giving up before you hit success, and what kept you going?
The thoughts have definitely come, flashed in my mind for sure. Several times, like raising a round might feel difficult. Our metrics would remain flat for like 4 or 5 months. More people are not coming onto the product. Retention on the product is pretty bad. Like the new users are dropping off. It feels very hard to move around things. People I'm trying to recruit are not joining the company. I've definitely faced all these moments. But even if I've entertained the thought of giving up, I've never wanted to. Because like I told in the Harvard interview that it's only over when you think it's over. So as long as some amount of delusion is needed to succeed in the startup world, and I try to always think like even if it takes time, I'm going to figure it out.
Thank you. A very simple question about the product you chose. Now, you chose to build a search engine instead of perhaps a chat box. What does that say about your views on the future of information and technology in the intersect with AI.
Could you repeat that again?
So I want to talk about how your decision to choose to build a search engine instead of like a chat box.
Right.
Why that specific path, and what does that say about your views on information?
Yeah. So there was a moment when we were just like having a version of Perplexity and sharing it with friends and colleagues for feedback. A former Googler who's actually an investor in the company, I'm not going to name who it is, said, hey, this is actually good. I like using it, but I don't think you should launch this. You should actually do something like character.ai, like where people are talking to chatbots and like where hallucinations, that is the AI model making up things, becomes a feature, becomes entertaining. People want to laugh at mistakes AI makes or stuff AI makes up, which is not even true. And people that's how you make a viral product, and that's how you grow. Your product is so boring, it just tells what people are already saying on the internet. It just tells what is already true. AI is not making up stuff. And if AI makes up stuff, your product actually ends up becoming worse because people want correct answers, so you shouldn't launch this. I'm like, hey, wait, like this is too important for the world. Like, trust me, I'm not trying to build for virality. I'm trying to build for like making the world like really smarter. And a tool like this makes me smarter. I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot more people like that. So that conviction definitely helped us to stay true to what we wanted to do, and that's kind of what guided to like not get too far along the directions of making it very chatty or conversational, or like put a lot of emojis, or like trying to ignore web sources and trying to like say stuff that the model thinks. We avoided these things because we have a mission to execute on, which is to answer people's questions with the most accurate in the most accurate way possible. That's how we think we can build trust with the users, and that's served us well.
Yeah, it's really noble to be guided by such personal conviction and the idealism in what guides you. And I think that in response to that, some of your critics have sort of like picked on that. They comment on how you emphasize transparency, citations, no hallucination with Perplexity.
Yeah.
So my question here is more about the long term. Do you think this is a strategically sustainable long-term solution, especially as state actors and other competitors are going to catch up and possibly not have the same moral or ethical standards that you have? Do you think that this strategy and in the way you're idealistically going by Perplexity would be able to sustain itself in the long run?
Definitely. There is like a framework that Jeff Bezos has, which I find pretty valuable. Is like often people ask, what are the things that will change? How is the world going to change in the next 5 to 10 years? But nobody usually asks, like, how is the world not going to change in the next 5? What are the things that will remain constant? Because those are the things you can actually like build around. And one thing that I believe is like nobody's going to come and say, hey, I want like slower answers. I want answers that are inaccurate. I want like poor sources. I want more lies from an AI. Like nobody wants that, especially in a world where it's going to be pretty easy to create fake synthetic content that appears human level in terms of the language skills. It's going to be even more important for having at least one AI native product that you can rely on for accurate answers. Just like how I said in my talk, was usually people associate trust with like privacy, because that's what social media companies did to us. But in an AI native world, where AIs are really going to like plug into your personal context and help you do stuff, accuracy becomes paramount to trust.
Well, so you touched on how AI could change things or potentially not change things. What are your thoughts on AI 2027?
2027?
Yeah, so it's a forecast on how AI will develop over the coming years. It's a paper that sort of like predicts what they believe the world will look like by 2027.
So I might not have read it, so if you can share some specific predictions, I can make some comments on that.
Okay, we can come back to that more in a second. I think one of the things I want to talk about in relation to that more particularly, it's more about how the impact of generative AI. So as generative AI sort of like turns factual knowledge and the traditional basis of university degrees into cheap commodity, what should become the new currency of human employability? And how do you think universities and employers should redesign their credentials and hiring metrics so that people can be matched for roles that feel genuinely earned and socially valuable rather than, the mere make work, show up?
Yeah, so I think the employees who are curious, who use these tools and who ask good questions are going to have a glorious future. And I'm already seeing that at our own company. Even though we are an AI native company, the habit of using AIs every day is not universal. Some people are still getting used to it. But those who are using it, those who are asking the right questions, those who are pretty curious learners are having a fantastic time. Because they might have signed up for a job that's very specific, but they start being more multidimensional and start doing a lot more things, and things in a very new way. They're a lot more efficient at how they get things done. And so efficiency is a great way to measure, how people can be more productive, like how people are, doing well in a company. And one other thing I would say is multitasking. Usually people are averse to multitasking. But in a world with AI, you can actually get so many different things done, things that are even outside of your comfort zone, because you were just curious and you learned about the topic.
Brilliant, thank you. I want to move on to something a bit more controversial. If you don't mind, if we talk about the elephant in the room, many publishers are saying that you are profiting from their work without their permission. Do you think they have a point?
So we always attributed the answers to sources, right? In fact, I'm very proud to say we are the first AI product that did that. When every other AI product wanted to just say what the model thinks and train the models on all the data of publishers and kind of to the extent that models can verbatim reproduce the text. We never did that. We only use models as summarization engines or reasoning engines, and we only use sources as citations that how you would write an article yourself for an assignment. That's essentially the principle we use for building our products. So we definitely did not steal anyone's data. We always attributed credit for the profitability, for the profiting of their work part. We came up with a program where we would share revenues we eventually make on queries where they get cited with the publishers, and we very openly acknowledged several different times that we cannot be a successful product if new content doesn't keep getting created, and that requires the journalism ecosystem to keep thriving.
Thank you. With the example about how me as a university student might use citations of professors and writers in my work, there's an ecosystem that allows for them to get paid in that, whether it be my library paying for the books, whether it be my university system called Solar paying for me to have access to the articles that I use. There is a path, many different paths in which these publishers do get paid. Do you think there could be a future where Perplexity as a platform would perhaps pay publishers and not just cite them?
So we're already paying them through revenue sharing, and we give them access to all our tools for free, and we subsidize our APIs for them to build AI native features in their products. So there is a lot of payments going on already in many different forms, and we made a $250,000 grant to the School of Journalism at Northwestern University. So we definitely are going to keep investing in the journalism ecosystem to keep it thriving.
Okay, on journalism, that's clearly a very important sector right now, especially with current affairs, what's going on in the world. What do you believe the future of journalism can be in an AI age, and what role do you believe Perplexity has in shaping it, given you guys are working very closely with journalists?
So definitely, the world is chaotic, right? There's always going to be crazy things going on, and someone needs to actually take the responsibility to try to report things in an unbiased and truthful way possible. And tools like ours look at all those sources and synthesize and summarize things in the context of a specific question. But people are still going to come and try to identify and discover new things and read it from the reporter's perspective. So having your own perspective about things at the end of an article, but reporting the article in the most unbiased way based on whatever facts are true, is how the world can continue to be more truth-seeking. And so journalism has a very important role to play there.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that you're currently expanding into, obviously Europe, Middle East. How do you localize AI across, different cultures, languages, norms, and ways of interaction?
It's a pretty important question. So one thing we have done is try to use several different models, run separate evals for different languages, making sure that the voice assistant tries to work well across different languages, both in terms of speech recognition and the speech synthesis. These are like some simple ways in which you can make sure the accessibility across languages exists for the product. Over time, we plan to work with local partners who are like building custom models for each of their countries. Maybe there are some aspects of the culture that are better captured by some of these models, and trying to build separate eval sets for these things would be a great way to do it.
Thank you. In this section, I want to ask one final question regarding local norms and cultures. At the moment, AI search seems to power users and professionals who exist, in developed countries, so and so, but not necessarily viewed as something that perhaps right now is helping everyday users, especially those who are considered being in the global south. Do you think this is true, or more importantly, how do you think that Perplexity or the AI industry can serve those everyday users or those who do not use AI for the white-collar related searches or uses?
So that's not what we are seeing in usage. Actually, half of our usage comes from high GDP countries, but the remaining half comes from the developing countries too. And their usage is really surprised us. They use it in so many different ways for running their businesses or uploading a lot of files and doing research on that. And they do it in their own local language. So I'm actually very encouraged by how they use it. And I would even say I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming years their adoption of AI surpasses the developed countries. And they try to rethink their businesses entirely because they're still developing, so there are opportunities to rethink the entire thing rather than trying to pivot from something that's already working. That's what the developed countries have.
Thank you. Pushing further on that, so you think perhaps that could be the future, perhaps, of AI revolution will be in places in the global south, in Africa, in parts of...
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Sweet. I'm going to a section about just leadership and just quick fire questions. What's the hardest thing that you feel about being a founder right now, especially in the context of how politically charged things are, but also how difficult it is to raise funds when the economy seems to be quite unstable, especially with what's going on in America and so on and so forth?
I guess the hardest thing is honestly the pressure, dealing with the relentless pressure, because it's a very competitive space in AI. There's a lot of, we're the only, I would say, startup still. Everybody else is a multi-$100 billion, $1 trillion company in the space. So I think that pressure, you gotta learn how to deal with it and still stay calm and focused, because if you lose sight of the long-term roadmap and start executing things on whims and fancies and whatever others are doing, you're gonna be in a pretty poor spot just 6 months from now. But it takes a lot of effort and real conviction to stick to your roadmap, even when others are doing things that may seem like that's what you should be doing.
Brilliant. If you could go back and do it all again, what would you do differently?
I would do the same things.
Brilliant. Well, with that, I would like to open up to the audience for their questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand up very high, and the loveliest member of committee would hand you the microphone. I recognize the gentleman with the blue jacket. For the recording.
Testing. Okay, we're good. Arvind, thank you so much for speaking with us. I guess my question is, where can this all go wrong? What's the biggest risk on your mind?
Well, like I said, the responsibility is there to make sure we earn your trust, right? And we can easily lose that if we lose sight of the big picture, which is we stop focusing on everything other than giving you accurate answers. At least for us, like I'm talking about things that we can control. There are a lot of other AI companies, and they're all after so many different goals. But at least in the case of Perplexity, the way things can go wrong for us is we lose sight of our core objective mission, which is provide truthful, accurate answers.
Maybe a quick follow-up. What about for the broader AI space?
I think like the fundamental thing to keep in mind is like try to build things that add value, right? It's questionable if like all the social apps are like truly valuable to our lives. In some ways they are, but in a lot of ways they are not. And I hope at least with AI, it's not something that's so addictive that you have to be on it 24/7. But whenever you are there, like you feel smarter or like you got something done and you feel like your quality of life improved. With that sort of a mindset, I think we'll be fine. And the other thing to keep in mind is some people are after like trying to gain power because AI is truly valuable. It's going to augment a lot of our knowledge work, maybe even automate some aspects of it. So whoever has the most powerful models definitely gathers a lot of power. So I hope they act with sufficient responsibility so that like they're not after power, but like actually like contributing usefully to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the lady on the second row here.
Thanks. Hello, my name is Najette. Very nice to meet you, Aravind. I work with the Gulf states, and you may be aware that they're pouring billions of dollars into the AI race. Recently, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia hosted Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, OpenAI, etc. If you had access to those, hundreds of billions of dollars, where would you put those funds?
Wow.
Huge question.
Well, the mission is the same. Like, make it even faster to like achieve what we want. Like, we give accurate answers to everybody. Like, he said like how access to all these tools needs to be universalized, democratized, and that requires a lot of like inference infrastructure spend. So we'll take it and spend on it, and like accelerate the advent of answers. That's basically it. Like today we serve like 30 million daily queries or something. I hope we can do billions of them a day, and that's going to cost us a lot of money. I don't know if it'll cost 100 billion, by the way, but definitely it'll cost a few billion.
They're investing billions and billions, and they've launched the new human AI, which is the Arabic large language model, to try to outdo sort of the Eastern Hemisphere in sort of competing, I suppose, with Silicon Valleys, etc., to try to make the Arabs on the map in terms of the AI launch and the AI race. So it's quite an exciting time for AI in the Middle East, I think, at the moment. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the member at the far bench there.
Hi, thank you for your talk. You talk about sort of adding value, but I wonder if you think about Perplexity being kind of at maximum value, my question is sort of about the role that human memory plays in the future. So in some sense, if you have a system that's kind of ultimately capable and you can ask it sort of anything, is there any point in knowing anything yourself? And therefore, I don't know, how do you see the role of sort of human memory and capability going forward, I suppose?
So your question is like, is our memory power important? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think like as these systems become more capable, we become sort of less needed in a way, and in some sense we can just ask, we don't have to remember, and therefore we don't really have to like process anymore or whatever, and maybe it reduces our creativity or something.
I think like some basic aspect of like you don't want to be in a state of like I always have to ask for even basic things. So I think some basic amount of memory to like process what you've already learned, to be able to ask the next set of questions would still be essential. Of course, the memory that's required for basic cognitive tasks is still needed. Stuff that's required for social connections still needed. None of that is going to go away, and memory to relive some of the experiences, at least in your head, and like feel good about it, these are not going to go away.
Thank you very much. I recognize the member with the purple top.
Thank you for your talk. I'm curious today, why should I use Perplexity over ChatGPT with search, Gemini, or Claude with internet access? Thank you.
So I think every AI product building internet access is a good thing. I feel like it's a positive impact we've had on the world to push others to do that. I still think we have the ultimate obsession and focus over accuracy and and we think that'll help us be the most trustworthy AI out there as far as fact checks and research is concerned. And the next thing that we are pushing as a company is to work on the browser, which will go an abstraction further away from this particular question. It's why do you need to worry about which AI to use if the AI is always there with you on the browser, on any web page you're on. And so, and our vision for that is moving AIs from just answering questions to doing things for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The member with the green top.
Thank you so much for the talk. If you hinted at this already, then I apologize because I might have missed it. But I think one way you separate yourself is how much you guys emphasize sources and citations in your answers. And my question relating to this is whether this is purely motivated just by accuracy, or is there a second underlying principle behind this? So for the sake of the argument, let's suppose that there's a question and there's a really good answer to it based on sources. And there's another answer that the AI comes up with, and there's no source behind it. Would your approach still be to choose the answer that has sources behind it, or just choose the most accurate one? In other words, is there some value behind authority and authority-based answers that you respect, and that's what motivates your philosophy, or is there something else?
So definitely we do prioritize answering from authoritative sources when we have them available. But when there are no authoritative sources to help the user's particular question, we do communicate to the user that we don't really have any sources from the web to answer that particular question, or nothing indicates something they're thinking. But here's what the model, AI model, can think. But it's up to you to actually go and do the fact checks and find out more, because our tool is unable to source anything useful for that query. So I think that aspect is essential to gaining users' trust too. When there is no information to be able to answer the question, there's no point throwing users at a bunch of sources.
Yes, the member on the access bench just right behind you.
Thank you for your talk. My question to you was that in future, Perplexity, does it aim to remain a generic AI platform, or does it plan to penetrate into a particular industry? And if yes, which industry would it be?
So the answer is yes and no. We plan to be as generic as possible because we think there's so much value to be created by doing so. And by being more generic, you try to actually be a better product on any specific thing too, because the magic is the reasoning and conversations, that's where the whole magic happens. Specifically though, there are a few verticals that are resonating a lot with our users. Like I mentioned, health is one very important vertical, and finance is a very important vertical. All these things are where accuracy is very important, so that it's natural that our product is excelling in those categories. And then a lot of verticals where research is being done, and it's not easy to do it in the current state of tools, is something we are focusing on, like shopping and travel. Just even answering simple questions like what you should buy, or which hotel you should stay, or what you should do in a place, or planning a trip. Giving you answers where it's not just a wall of text, but you can actually execute actions after the answer. These are ways in which we plan to go deeper on certain verticals.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the member on that.
Hi, Arvind. Thank you for speaking with us today. We talked a lot about accuracy in the training data, but my question is, how do you mitigate bias that is currently present in data and while training your models?
So our training largely focuses on skills rather than knowledge. We try to train models on summarization. We try to train models on citations, like sourcing relevant content, reasoning, like breaking down like math or like coding problems into separate steps and then executing them, and we can verify if the thing is correct or not without any bias, because there's one single truthful answer to any puzzle or coding problem. And so we try to train models on like how to format an answer better. So these are the things that we tend to like do all our post-training on. And the way our product is constructed is knowledge and skills are decoupled. So the model's internal knowledge of the world is not really used to give you answers, because we try to source that from human content on the web. Of course, you still live with human bias, because there's nothing that's bias-free. You can only try to push it to as unbiased as possible. So that's where using authoritative sources that are peer-reviewed, and so because of the peer review, the probability of bias goes down. And then using the models just for the summarization and reasoning layers is a way to like, cut down as much bias as possible.
Thank you. I recognize a member with a dark top there.
So thanks for being here today. Seeing as most of the industry looks at AI as using, let's say, a large language model, supervised, fine-tuning, reinforcement learning, does Perplexity see a way to disrupt the industry by having a different paradigm of model, or do they care more about distribution of the product and the user experience?
I think we care about both. Without having distribution, you don't actually have enough data to actually train anything. So distribution is important for like training models. In terms of the training paradigm, like RL is actually going to be the most important thing, because that's the one that you can actually let the models think for themselves and learn skills on their own and not do things in the way like humans hard code it. And so that often ends up being a better solution long term.
Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the member in between the two members there.
Hi, thank you for your talk. Forgive me for being a bit blunt, but as I understand it, when Perplexity first came out, it was a completely revolutionary new kind of search. But in the years since, a lot of the leading AI models have integrated these kinds of search abilities into their products. And in my personal experience, I find that a lot of the, like Google, OpenAI tools seem to work at least as well as Perplexity does, and often even better. How do you see Perplexity competing against these more powerful, more established players in the AI landscape, especially ones which are able to pivot easily to respond to new challengers? And how do you have any thoughts about what this means for the broader AI ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think the way we plan to address this is to operate an abstraction even about chatbots, which is the browser. Every AI product is currently stuck at a point where all it does is like answering your questions. Maybe things like deep research push it to the boundary in terms of answering really hard questions that take like several minutes worth of work, but it's still not actually doing anything for you. It's still not actually completing your work. You're still the one doing everything. And the fundamental way to change that is to build agents and make agents part of your browser. And unify browsing, question answering, and agentic workflows all in like one single interface. And first of all, just completely remove the need for asking this question of which AI should I use for this one particular prompt, because you're just always going to be asking things on your new tab page or on the Omnibox, or you have the assistant on the side on whatever task you're doing on any web page. And that's our bet, like taking all the distribution that we've built so far and like going further along with the browser. And that'll be a completely different front end than just another chat interface. And we think that's the right way to like actually build agents.
So if I may ask a quick follow-up question, what you're saying is the way to compete against the biggest players is just to move faster than them and to establish a foothold before they can even get into that field? Or do you think it's, I mean, obviously you have to believe that it's possible to compete, but from a broader philosophical perspective, do you see this, working in the longer term, or do you think this is always just going to be an uphill battle?
I think it'll work. But by the way, all these questions existed even for OpenAI when they were beginning to train these GPT-2 or GPT-3-like models, or even GPT 3.5, 4. Everybody just said, like, Google's going to eventually train these models. Like, why should OpenAI even exist? And, like, I think they've proven people wrong by just continually, like, shipping new things and, like, keeping to updating their models and their products, right? So every time there's a new company that's building new things, until it gets that critical velocity, like the adoption to the scale of like hundreds of millions of users, there's always going to be some uncertainty. And the only way to overcome that is to keep innovating and shipping new things.
Thank you.
Thank you. No question? All right, cool. The member right here.
Thank you very much. I have an education background, so I've worked in Ghana in education policy regulation, and also as a former teacher, I know just immensely how important AI is for filling learning gaps in the curriculum for students. But I've also been around a couple of old folks who believe in conventional wisdom and are very skeptical of AI. And so for me, I guess specifically, I would want to find out what Perplexity is doing, especially in terms of people who are skeptical about data mining, digital colonialism, and AI's tendency to extract rather than bridge knowledge gaps. How are you specifically handling that or making sure there's less of that and more like embracing what AI can potentially do, at least for in education? Thank you.
So the question is like, how are we mining data?
No. How are you making sure you're not mining data and sort of replicating digital colonialism from the global south specifically? Because indigenous knowledge is so important, but AI tends to extract. And I'm thinking about a system that allows the global south to be part of the producers of the knowledge and not just about who is generating or consuming or accessing or benefiting from the global north, if that makes sense.
Like, I'm not fully getting the question, sorry.
Okay. So what I'm trying to find out is how are you making sure Perplexity doesn't fall into the trap of digital colonialism or data mining so that the people from the global south can contribute to generating the data and producing it instead of we being another mine for extracting data to further.
I see. So the question is like, how can we ensure individual contributors can still contribute data to a product like ours? Got it. I think like it comes through like, you know, like building good reputation for yourself and credibility for yourself, and then like, you know, that will build a trust score for like whatever server that you host the data on, and that'll be used to like rank up higher in like our search indexing, and then that'll help us use that as part of the answers.
So we have time for just one more question. I'm going to recognize the member with the blue denim jacket there.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. So my question was related to advertising. So do you think the model of companies providing services through advertising and using that as means of revenue is now changing, where we're going back to now charging for a premium service and, you know, minimal free services?
Yeah, I think like I've been pleasantly surprised by the willingness of people to pay for these tools. I think all of us in AI, like who are running AI companies, severely underestimated the willingness of people to pay subscription fee for all these tools. And I think it's only going to increase when agents are actually beginning to work, because it's very much easier for people to internalize like the feeling of paying for another person you hired, and when they're actually doing work and tasks for you on a daily basis. So we plan to like keep our product as advertisement free as possible and just rely on subscriptions for like building a business.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had like a lot of questions specifically about AI, Perplexity, and very high technical and knowledgeable questions. I just thought for us to just take a breather second and just recognize more about you very quickly. Like, you're clearly quite engaged and do a lot. What do you do to relax? What unwinds you?
Actually, like sleep. No, I'm not like saying. I think it really helps. I think a lot of people try to sleep less because they think they have a lot of work to do, and that only makes you less efficient and more stressed, and it becomes a pretty bad spiral. So yes, I sleep well, and I think I work out, and like there's not much time to do other stuff. Just to be very honest. But I do try to read books, physical books more than Kindle. I think it's good for the eye. So these are, and sometimes play a sport. These are the main things.
That's really good. A lot of people view and look at, online influencers. There's a stereotype of tech bros of what you need to do to be successful. Wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, stick your head into a glass bath. Or
no, I don't do cold showers.
Yeah. So my question is that, a lot of us here are university members, and a lot of us here have aspirations to hopefully be successful. Maybe, a quarter of you, or maybe 1/10 will be okay or nice.
More than
what would your advice be to our members? What they need to do in their personal lives to achieve the success that you achieved, and what they might want to do?
So I'll tell the boring answer, but I think it's very important. Because I used to have these sort of questions, and I used to want to imitate others I thought were successful, because I thought that was the best way for me to be successful too. The real answer is just be yourself, because authenticity is very, very important, and then people value that, and I think that's what makes you special.
Thank you. My final running up question is back to AI again. Sorry, guys, but it's more about you and what you want to be viewed as when everything's all said and done. So what do you want your legacy to be, not just for Perplexity, but for this very interesting moment in AI history?
Definitely, I would allow our product to be remembered in a very good way as increasing the amount of truth and understanding of the world globally, and democratizing knowledge. Because access to knowledge expertise is still hard, and a tool like ours can give someone the power of deep research without having to do much work. And I hope it makes everyone curious and truth-seeking. That's the impact I would like to see, and I'm happy if other products do the same. It doesn't have to be just us. I don't want to be the only person operating in this, but I would love for us to be the best product.
Thank you very much, Arvind. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming and thanking Arvind for tonight.
Thank you.